There you go.
Well, how do you do, Buckaroos? We are live. And this is the first time the Beer Whisperer Pub has got some billiards going on in the background. Hey, I am here. I visited. It's Hoosier night at the Beer Whisperer Pub. Hey, I've got Todd Renn and Jon Sherron there with me. And hey, Todd, if you would tell me what beer you're drinking and why you picked it, but don't give me tasting notes yet.
It's a new one for me, and I'm not sure how long. It may be a new one for the brewery too, but it's Mad Tree Brewing. Can you see that? I can't see my picture in the bottom, so.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we can see it. We see
and
it.
just in time for baseball season, it's called Rounding Third.
Rounding. All right.
And it's a red IPA.
For those of you that might not know, Todd and I have done a couple videos talking about baseball.
And I only picked it because I wanted to try something new, and I just didn't stop to get any old school beer. So nothing significant about it other than it's baseball season in 2 days.
That makes sense. How about you, John? Tell me what you got and why you picked it.
Well, I'm that old school guy, so what I brought to the table was Stroh's.
Oh my goodness! Somebody wants the trots in the morning.
Yeah.
or later tonight.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna get the trots. Well, let me show you what I picked. What I'm starting with. I actually have two, and I picked both of them for specific reasons. I'm starting with the Diamond Bear Southern Blonde. Diamond Bear is a craft brewery out of Little Rock, Arkansas. This is a 4.4%, 22 IBU crisp lager. But what I'm showcasing today is my glassware. My wife actually just found this one today at a DAV, I believe. You see that old Anheuser-Busch label?
Yep.
The tankard style mug. I am a junkie for classic glassware.
I like that.
Well, hang on a minute, Tom. I'm going to show you my classic glassware as soon as I get my beer poured. I broke this out especially for you, Tom.
All righty.
She always finds good glassware at the consignment places.
That's an old Falstaff chalice.
Oh no, that's nice. Yeah, I've got. I don't have a Falstaff. I've got several like that. I've got Bush, PBR, Bud, but I don't have a Falstaff. That's nice. I love those old chalices.
I was actually.
I like to joke though that this glass here. You see that glass?
Yeah.
It's a left-handed glass because I have to hold it with my left hand for you to see the logo.
Yeah. I would have never thought that. But
I actually had somebody take me serious and comment on a video that I called it a left-handed mug. No, I'm joking, buddy. So here's the thing. Now, I want to start. When I'm talking about classic brands, so I want to start off this discussion with something John and I have talked about. If we've talked about it once, we've talked about it 100 times. My issue with a lot of beers, a lot of the classic brands, and I consider myself an old school guy as well. But the problem is the beers that you're drinking with the old school name on it isn't the same beer that our dads drank 40 to 50 years ago. They're formulated differently. They're using more adjuncts than they used to. Now they're using that GMO corn syrup. I mean, to me, they're horrible products, which is why I'm using this one, which isn't an old school brand. But what they're making here is basically an old school beer. It's a crisp, clean lager. Much closer to what our dads drank 40 to 50 years ago. Certainly was closer than what's in those cans today. And that's my argument against those beers. That's why I chose what I chose, but I love this classic glassware. Okay, John, now you're up. Argue with me.
I'm definitely arguing that point because maybe you've brought that point up many times. I mean, a lot of these old school beers you take like Stroh's and Schlitz where they've lost the recipe when Pabst bought them, and they put a lot of older people together that worked there back years ago to try to reformulate the old recipe. But I don't think if you really had the old recipe that you could make these beers exactly the way they was back then by today's brewing standards to what yesterday's brewing standards was, due to just how much different things have changed with the hops and the malts and the yeast and the different characters characteristics of stuff like that. There's just no way you can do it, and I don't think you'll ever do it. So.
No,
Plus,
you're right, you can't.
Plus, you probably lose the shitty old tin can beer taste in them too.
Yeah, and that is true. Yeah.
You don't get now. You know, I mean, I think that's part of the old school also.
The old
So
nostalgia.
I'm guessing, Todd, you're a little younger than John and I. Do you remember the Pop Top? Are you old enough to remember Pop Tops?
I do remember them, but yeah, I'm about 10 years younger than you guys, I guess. But I do remember them though.
Did John and I remember the seams on the back of the cans, right, John, before aluminum?
Yep, we do. Yep, I've probably got a few of them old seams sitting around here. So. I've got a bunch of them sitting down here. So.
Boy, you could really taste the can in those beers, couldn't you?
You could, yes, you could. And I can remember, you know, you're talking about old school beers back when Coors first came out, and we was in Florida, and that's when you couldn't buy it on this side of the Mississippi River. But,
yeah.
But do you remember the old school cans back then of Coors that had the punch tops, that had a punch top to drink out of and a punch top with the air hole?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You pop the thing, and
Yeah.
I do remember those.
Yeah.
Well, the other point I wanted to make here was price. A lot of folks say they buy those other beers for price. You know, it's the end of the month. I need something I can drink. Well, this actually cost me $64 a six-pack. It was the exact same. It was the exact same price as Bud and Bud Light in the stores. It was cheaper than all the Michelob products, and it was only 40 cents more than Coors and Miller. So I guess my point is, you can drink a quality beer at a decent price if you're paying attention.
Yeah, that's a good price.
Yeah, that's definitely a good price. And I think price point, mine was $5.49 for a six-pack of these old school beers. So.
I think it's been, gosh, it might be 20 years since I've had a Stroh's, John.
Yeah.
So, I can't tell you how long it's been for me.
But I was thinking about this earlier, things to talk about during this conversation, and I know Todd's been there several times with his wife, and so when you go to the Silver Dollar, which is one of Louisville's premier restaurants, they offer not only high priced bourbons and whiskeys, but they have these old school beers like this and Schlitz and Coors Banquet and a lot of your older beers that a lot of restaurants aren't offering anymore, and PBRs and stuff. So, but they're trying to, I guess, I don't know if you keep the nostalgia going or what, but I mean, you know, you've been there, Todd. You've seen the beer list they have, and they've got a pretty good beer list, and all like craft beers, these old beers like this too. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. They do have a lot of the type stuff that you can't really find at a lot of restaurants or even bars, I guess you could say.
And they're far and few between. So.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that Coors has put out those commemorative stubby bottles. Do you think when breweries do things like that, that's what they're trying to capture? They're trying to get some of us? Because, I mean, they came out about, a couple years ago, but when they first came out, I mean, I bought a six-pack because I love the old stubbies. Do you think that's why these breweries are kind of trying to bring back, you know, a lot of them are bringing back their classic labels, their classic-looking cans, their classic glassware? Do you think that's why they're doing it?
I think they're trying to capture an audience that I think they're trying to capture the younger audience that doesn't appeal to this type of beer. They're trying to look at the nostalgia value of it. Maybe does that sound right?
Yeah, but do you think the youngsters care about nostalgia? I'm thinking it's mostly for us.
Well, I don't know. I think they kind of might, because think about Pabst Blue Ribbon, for instance. It was almost kind of on death's bed before Clint Eastwood's movie come out, and he was drinking it in there, and all of a sudden it was a big boom of PBR all of a sudden again with the younger folks. And I think also
you have to be a hipster, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I think to get back to your point of the breweries doing some of these classic styles, maybe it's also a way to introduce to the older generation, to maybe try to pull them in little by little, to introduce them to that old style, and then bring in the craft part of it also, and maybe try to win them over at the same time. Maybe, just a thought.
But
that makes sense.
I was at Hunter Station today, and Todd's familiar with that also. Today was the first time I've ever seen natural light in the stubby bottles there.
Oh, really? See, a lot of them are bringing those stubbies back, and I don't know why, but I love the stubby bottles. And those kind of old school beers, I want to get them as cold as humanly possible, and I'll chug it right out. I mean, not chug, but I'll drink it right out of the bottle. I love to drink those right out of the bottle because I don't know that I'm gaining anything by pouring it off into a glass. But there's something about drinking out of one of those bottles that I think it just the beer tastes better for some reason. And I know it's in my head, but I just like them better.
But I seen today when I went to the keg too, I didn't realize that Pabst Blue Ribbon brought back their old labels too, their old vintage labels.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that either. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We were talking about Clint Eastwood a second ago. In many of Clint Eastwood movies, his older movies, he was drinking an Olympia, if you guys remember.
There you go. There's a nice old glass for you. Is that one? Can you see that one?
Oh, there you go. Oh, I like the old PBR glass. All right.
Looks like a little can. John probably knows where that come from.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You got one, don't you?
No, I don't have one. No.
Oh, you don't?
I come from Rusty.
No, I actually got that one at a restaurant. I can't remember if it was. I think it was at Buffalo Wild Wings.
I wasn't with you on that one, I don't guess.
I want to ask you guys a question. I know you two drink more of these classic brand labels more so than I do. So John, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
You know, I know you're a big craft beer drinker, and I know you buy a lot of even expensive and hard to find craft beers. So when you buy a product like this, is there a special reason you're buying it for? Is it price? Is it nostalgia? I mean, why are you picking this product up?
Well, you know, a lot of this, and I pick these up, a 6-pack of these and others every once in a while, just for the nostalgia value of it more than anything, just to keep up with drinking these old school beers. It's kind of silly, but you know, and the price point of it is fairly cheap. They're cheaper than Bud or Miller or one of those, and but I just think, you know, and if I go out to a restaurant and I see these, I'm going to drink these over anything just because it's the nostalgia value of it for me.
How about you, Todd?
For me, it's more of a I buy them, you know, your Bud Lights, your Miller Lights, or whatnot, to keep in the fridge, because not everybody that comes over likes the craft beer. Now, for me, if I'm going to be at home and staying at home, I'm going to drink the craft beers that I have in the fridge, and you know, now that I'm not going out anywhere. Now, that being said, if I know I'm going to a cookout or something, well, not here lately, probably I'll drink the craft beers, but if I know I'm going to be drinking, you know, from noon to midnight or something, it's more of an ABV type thing for me, and I'm just going to go with the lower, you know, the adjunct lager type things, you know, just because the ABV's smaller and you can drink them, you know, for longer duration of the day. Basically, that's what it comes down to me. Now, if I'm just popping one for the flavor, obviously it's a good craft beer.
Well, for me, the beer I'm drinking, the Diamond Bear Southern Blonde, this one is only 4.4%.
Yeah, now that Fall City I had earlier tonight, their lager, I can't remember, what's the name of that one, John? That new one that they just come out with.
Oh God, is it a Belgian lager?
No, I don't think it's just more like a standard. I think it's only like 4% alcohol. I don't think it's very high ABVs.
You're checking in?
No, you didn't say.
Yeah, I did. I can't get on there or it'll blank me off.
Oh, okay, hang on a sec.
You can check it and see.
But
I think it's 4%, and I think it's just an American like lager type style. I can't remember the full name of it, but I had it on tap, and I'll tell you what, it didn't taste like your old school type.
The Kentucky Common.
There you go. Yeah, the Kentucky Common.
Kentucky Common. Okay.
They introduced that last year at the Derby City Brew Fest, which was a phenomenal beer.
And I tell you what, it was much better tonight than I remembered it being back last year.
Yeah, because you had you had that, yeah.
Was that at the Derby City Festival thing or whatever at the Young? Okay.
Yeah.
But it was, I was pleasantly surprised. And that would be, I don't know what it runs, a 6-pack or whatever, but if it was...
Like most Fall Cities, about $10 a 6-pack.
Oh yeah, I may not pay that for. I may not pay that for that, but if it was in the $7 range, it was a very nice, mild, light beer.
Well, if either one of you guys want to send me a bottle,
Okay.
All right, we can probably do that.
I mean, I'm not fishing or anything, but if you happen to have an extra one lying around,
And when Tom was down here and we went to the keg and picked up a bunch of beers and had a good time, he got to pick up some Olympia beer, which I know that was one of your dad's favorite beers. And but Tom also picked up some Fall City, I believe, down in one of the.
I did grab some Fall City, yeah.
Got a real excellent review on it, and the thing that I remember most about that review is you was spot on. It's not a $9 6-pack beer.
No,
it's a $7 6-pack beer.
And
I would say they probably don't make one that any of them should be that much.
And me and Todd, I guess, were lucky enough to be in the area where we was in on the Fall City at the start, and me and Todd's talked about this many times. The Fall City now is not the Fall City then. I mean, it's got something different in it from when it first come out to what it is now. And it was to me when it first come out, it was a $10 6-pack. And what it is now, it's a $7 6-pack easy.
So you think it was worth more back then than it would be now?
Yeah, because it was a better tasting beer, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think they're relying too much on the name and the nostalgia, not putting enough time and quality to the beer? Is that what you're thinking?
406.
Probably.
It might be, again, one of those deals where they are buying the name to try to capture some of the older, not to say all together, but, trying to intertwine your normal adjunct lager drinkers compared to your craft beer drinkers, maybe. Somebody might see the name Fall City and go, oh, let's, I haven't had that in 20 years. Let's try that and see,
But a lot of those old names are starting to come back. I know Tom and you're familiar with Sterling.
I just poured some beer in a glass here. I was getting ready to put up there.
There, but Sterling's making a comeback, and I don't know if you're familiar with. Remember Wiedemann?
Oh yeah, I sure do.
It's made a comeback, and they're all coming back as craft beers. I think Sterling though.
Oh yeah, I probably am.
Sterling's made by Upland right now, isn't it, Todd? If you look on
the Sterling glass, you can probably see better now. They got beer poured in it.
There you go.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Hey.
So what I just poured is from Saddlebach Brewing Company. It's called the Light of the Ozarks. It's basically meant for the light beer drinkers that come to visit them at the brewery. It's only 4.2%, 23 IBUs, but it's basically, again, an old style beer from a new craft brewery.
Yeah. It's
light, it's crisp, it's easy drinking. It's what the old school lagers used to be.
Mm-hmm. And where's it from, Tom?
Springdale, Arkansas.
Okay.
Had to move locations.
You alluded to it earlier. There are two classic brands that wherever if I'm traveling I will buy every time. One is Olympia because growing up as a kid that was my dad's beer. The other one is Grain Belt because my dad growing up that was the beer he drank growing up in South Dakota was Grain Belt. So anytime I can find Grain Belt or Olympia, I will buy those two.
Have you ever seen Grain Belt? I don't guess I've ever heard of that.
You know what? I found a 12-pack in Iowa. It's been brought back by the August Shell Brewery, and I found a 12-pack in Iowa back in August. And I got to tell you, it's probably my nostalgia, probably my mind playing tricks on me. But I thought that beer was just darn tasty.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, I guess growing up as a kid, the beer that I can remember most that my dad drank and was I guess Fall City, and I can remember probably some Drummond Brothers and some other beers, like that. I mean, Stroh's and Slits. I mean, and but Budweiser and Miller wasn't the big high demand back, I guess, when I was a kid. More along the lines of the Stroh's and the Slits and Fall City.
And Pabst Blue Ribbon too. That was a big one back then as well. Yeah, I know my dad, when I was a kid, that was what my dad drank all the time, and his good friend drank the Old Fall City,
Yeah.
and that was, that was the two, so the big ones for around my household anyway.
Very nice.
Was the Old Fall City and the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
Now I wonder though, John, you probably would know better than I would. Is the Pabst Blue Ribbon now that they're making now, is it the same as it was 30 years ago?
No.
It's a lot better, right?
It is not.
No.
It's much better now, right?
No, yeah, oh yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay.
Especially if you like corn syrup in the shits.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to always say about the Old Fall City. They used to call it Old Fall Shitty because of that reason.
None of these beers are what they was back 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Well, I didn't think they were, but I couldn't remember. I didn't assume that Pabst was probably completely different now than what it was.
Well, let me ask you two guys a question. I've heard lately, in fact, this was just brought to my attention, this was kind of out of touch, I guess. People have mentioned having standby beers, basically having these cheaper brand beers handy just to have for whatever reason. Or I've heard it called end-of-the-night beers, after you've already had your good craft beer, to have a beer like this. Are you guys familiar with that concept? Is that something you all do?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I have several standby beers.
Well, I mean, I use the term different than it was used to me in that context. For me, a standby beer is just something I have in the fridge. But they were talking about these cheap beers specifically to have something very inexpensive for whatever reason, and then that was a new concept to me.
Yeah. I mean, I mowed my yard tonight, and I had, I guess if I get, then Todd knows better than anybody. I go to my refrigerator, there's at least 2 cases of Miller Lite cold for when I mow, and as a standby beer, But I've got several craft beers in my basement, so But I mean, I think you can drink. You're not going to drink 100 IBU beer in 70-degree weather and mow your yard.
No, but again, for me, I'd pick a beer like this, that only costs $6.60 for a 6-pack that I can drink easy. That's not going to give me the shits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can find.
I'm just saying, again, that was just brought to my attention, so I was just kind of curious.
If you can find those on a regular basis, but we don't really have anything that I can think of that falls in line with that at that price point.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If we could get that, I would buy that a 6-pack all day long to keep in the fridge. But
it's a Little Rock, Arkansas brewery, and these guys are doing some fine stuff. I don't know if they're doing any crazy out of the box, beer geek kind of stuff, but everything they do is just solid, and that's one reason I like them. I think breweries that get craft breweries, especially that are just doing solid stuff, get overlooked for the one brewery that's got one crazy beer that works.
But
I would agree.
But Tom, and I done a video from a brewery in Indianapolis, and I think you watched it. That had a light beer, and I think you're really starting to see more the breweries starting to pick up and making these lighter beers for people that come in that are saying, I don't really want this high hoppy beer or this high ABV beer. I want something light like Bud Light or Miller Lite, and like what you're drinking right now. I mean, and I think you're seeing a lot more of the breweries tending to go to those lighter style beers for those beer drinkers that don't like the big high volume craft beers.
Well, I've had this conversation with you and other folks too. I mean, it seems to be that craft beer is kind of splitting off into factions. You have that serious, crazy, very pretentious wing of the craft beer that won't buy anything that's under $15 a 6-pack. The folks that the whale hunters, I guess, and I hate that term, by the way, but the guys are only looking for the big stuff. But then you got craft beer drinkers like myself and you guys that want the big stuff upon occasion, but we just want a good beer we can drink. And I think like a Springdale, Arkansas Saddlebach, for instance, Diamond Bear. It's not only craft beer drinkers that are going there. They're getting non-craft beer drinkers to show up because they're doing a lot of other things. And because they're showing up, they're not only buying beers like this, but then they're discovering other styles. I mean, I've got a buddy, Scott, I call him Huggy Bear. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, I took him to a beer fest, and at that point he was only a Bud Light drinker. And he asked me, I asked him questions about what his tastes were, and for some reason I thought he might, for whatever reason, like porters and stouts. Now he doesn't. To this day he still won't drink APAs and IPAs. He doesn't dig the hoppy, but he has become a big porter and stout drinker. Which and think about that for a second. Somebody that drank only Bud Light up to that point is now buying porters and craft porters and stouts. So I guess my point is, you never know what somebody's going to like until you point it in their direction.
Yeah.
Well, I think more than anything, it just becomes like anything else. It's an acquired taste that you end up having. I can remember, and John will attest to this, when we first started going to brew at the zoo.
Yeah.
And the only beer I've ever poured out to this day, which I love now and is one of my favorite locals, is Optimus.
Yeah.
Oh, oh my gosh, I love some Optimus.
And the first time I tried that, Tom, and I shit you not, and John will even, and I think he probably even did the same thing. We had a half a glass of it and dumped the rest of it.
Yeah.
But that was when we just started getting into really big time into the craft beer scene. I'm talking 6-7 years ago, and now it's like I wouldn't pass that up. To me, that's a really good beer. And
the first time I had that Optimus, I almost popped the nutty right there.
I guess the point I was trying to make is I think a lot of it is just an acquired taste, and if you give it a chance and actually truly try it and taste it and drink enough of them to where you start getting. I don't think anybody initially coming from a Bud Light or a Miller Lite and drinks an IPA goes, oh, this is fantastic. I don't think that happens. I mean, I guess maybe it does, but I think the bitterness shock at first is kind of a killer. But once you get used to it and get the taste of it, I mean, why would you go back to the other thing? Other than on the occasions of being hot out or going to be drinking all day long. In my opinion.
So of the classic beer brands, guys, I've told you mine. I'll always buy Greenbelt and Olympia. Are there brands that you favor for nostalgia or flavor or one or the other?
I'll tell you one of my favorites, and I'll tell you a couple of my favorites. I mean, it's for nostalgia value, Tom. I got to look at. I'm a fan of Olympia. I mean, it's actually I went to go pick some up. And the keg didn't have any. I don't know why.
Oh.
I'm going to have to talk to him. But I also, they didn't have any Schlitz. But, I'm old style. I think that's a tremendous beer. And every time we go to Chicago, I grab it on draft. But, I mean, and I'm a big fan of Coors Banquet.
Yeah, I actually agree. Yeah, actually, I'd forgot about old style, so that I will buy old style, especially if I go somewhere. If they have it on tap, I will drink an old style on tap.
Yeah.
Old style's good.
What are those brands that you prefer?
For me, I mean, it would be an old style. We just can't get it around here much, but I wouldn't even go too far back. I mean, I would have to just say, I guess, a good old Miller Lite, and that's just because, more or less, that's kind of what was in my household growing up, for the most part. Once I got in the later, teen years, my dad finally switched over from PBR to Miller Lite. So it's not really that nostalgic, I guess. But for me, I guess it would have to be.
But, you got to look at nostalgia value. I mean, Miller Lite wasn't the first light beer, but it was definitely the second light beer that was ever made. So.
Yeah. So.
71. So. It's
probably not as classic as the ones that you're bringing up, but. Again, from my time frame, I guess that's what I have to go.
Was one of the first. Yeah, I got a Miller Lite story. It's kind of an odd one, but my dad had his first heart attack when I was 10 years old in 1975. Of course, my dad, being a big drinker of all sorts at that time, wasn't going to quit drinking no matter what. So he thought if he switched to light beer, that would be better. So for a brief period of time, there was about a 3-year period where he switched to drinking Miller Lite, but then he went back to Olympia.
Yeah. But hey, let me show you this, Tom. This is probably a can that you'll probably remember back in the day. Remember that can from Stroh's?
Hold it up a little, John. I can't. Oh, there. Oh, I do. I think I had one of those way back then. Oh yeah, fire. I remember the Fire Brood.
But and then you got to take it. Let me show you this. This was actually, this bottle was my grandpa's, and I've got the whole thing of it here. This was remember when they had the 24-pack returnable bottles?
Excuse me. Yeah, I do.
This is one of the returnable bottles. See it?
Oh wow! No, that I've never seen that before. That's cool.
Yeah. So if you go off the date off the bottom, that's a 1964 bottle.
Wow, that's awesome. And let me
Doesn't
show
look
you
a day
one
older than that.
I want to show you guys one last piece of glassware. This is this little Coors tasting glass with the gold lettering and rim. Have you guys seen that before?
No, I never have seen that.
Me either.
Don't you just love these glasses like this, though? I've got a Hamm's glass that's very similar that I actually bought in your neck of the woods, John. I bought it in Louisville.
Oh, really? Hey, but
But the Hamm's. But I just love these little glasses. So although I'm not a fan of the beer that is it's made today, I just love the glassware.
But I was at went to the new flea market there where the old Kroger used to be down by Big Lots. Todd, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And actually, and I'm thinking about going back and buying them because they had them for like a couple bucks a piece. But Tom, they had some old Hamm's chalices like this for like a couple bucks.
Oh, really?
I've never seen a Hamm's chalice like that. So.
Well, how much were they, John?
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So.
John, if they have a couple, pick one up for me and I'll pay you for it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, Tom. Right back here, if you see where my hand's at, right above me, I did find your address yesterday going through some stuff that I was looking for. So
that's funny.
After all this time, it's still the same old address, isn't it?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been there for 20 plus years.
Cool. So yep, right here, bub, where my finger is your address. So.
All right.
So.
Well, guys, as we wrap up this session of the Beer Whisperer Pub, I'm going to start with you, Todd. Any parting words about classic brands?
Yeah, I mean, drink what you like and what brings back the nostalgic for you, you know, what you maybe grew up with. And if you can still get them, they still produce them. You know, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't still drink them. Not to say they're the best that's ever been made, but like you said, you know, whatever it is that does it for you, they just taste good for some reason because that's what you probably remember growing up with. So why not?
It is, yeah.
So why not?
How about you, John?
Well, you know, I like these old nostalgia type beers, and you know, and one that I forgot about, I was going to bring up that I had not too long ago was Old Long Star. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, yep, Lone Star.
But you know, I mean, you gotta do what you enjoy and like what you enjoy, and you know, I mean, not everybody enjoys hoppy beers, not everybody enjoys high ABV beers. I mean, drink what you enjoy and like it. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
there's a ton of craft beers out there, and you know, I mean, me and Todd's drank couple hundred, if not more than that, craft beers. But you know, we got a crawfish bowl coming up, so we'll probably drink way too many craft beers there. So, but you know, I mean, you got to do what you enjoy. I mean, don't hate it, just enjoy it. I mean, if you don't like what somebody's drinking, move on.
Yeah,
Right.
and you know what? For me, I mean, drink what you like you guys said. But you know, I brought two great examples to the table here. That craft beer doesn't have to be high ABV, or it doesn't have to be extremely hoppy. There are a lot of craft brewers out there doing an old school style beer the way it used to be done, and I think that's important. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be crazy. A craft beer doesn't have to be big and out of the box. A craft beer doesn't have to be asparagus, cow testicle. I mean, you know, we've got all these crazy ass beers these days. I mean, both you got both the macros and both craft beer drinkers making fun of each other for one reason or another. Everybody ought to be able to just drink what they want. For me, I just want to drink a good beer. out of a classic beer glass.
And let me say this before we get off here, and maybe you'll agree. I'm sure you're going to agree with me, Tom. But if you seriously want to look back at what a classic old beer is, and most people consider it a craft beer, most people don't. But if you want to look at an awesome beer for the price point, the ABV, the alcohol content, you're never going to go wrong with an Anchor beer.
Oh, Anchor. Well, I mean, Anchor's arguably the first craft beer.
And there might be some people argue your point on that, but
well, that's why I said arguably. But yeah, I mean, it's a great beer. I mean, it's a California common style. It's a steam beer, and it, it was a great beer.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
it is a great beer. It's not dead. I don't know why you said it was. I remember when I first had. I grew up in Southern California. That's from San Francisco. But I mean, I first had that. I was probably. Well, I guess I shouldn't say my age, but at the time, but I'm let's just say mid-'80s. When I first had that beer, I thought it was the greatest beer I'd ever had at that point in my young life. I thought that beer was amazing.
Yeah, but and I know you want to cut this short, but let me bring this up. I mean, you can remember back in the mid-'80s, like I can, because I graduated in '84, and you drank beer pre-'84, like I did probably, and you can remember, there really wasn't no such thing as craft beer back then, but if you wanted something different, you had to, the only place at the time that we could get those beers like that was off Fern Valley Road down here in Louisville at the Liquor Barn. And you got a case of beers from around the world, or they had a section of beers from Japan, or beers from here, and that was the only big thing of, I guess, what you would call craft beers back then.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time you start seeing imports. You start seeing a Heineken, Lowenbrau, Beck's, yeah.
And at the time, I mean,
Pilsner Urquell. I first seen Pilsner Urquell in '85, I think.
Yeah, but Lowenbrau in the day was a fancy bottle and was a pretty good beer.
They were a German beer, then they were bought by Miller and became a classic American beer, and then they went back to being an import again.
Yeah, and then they went out of business. But I mean, to me, one beer back in the day that was bought by Miller Coors was a failing brewery. They had a tremendous beer. That was Meisterbrau.
Oh yeah.
Cousin Eddie was cleaning his shit or drinking a Meisterbrau.
I gotta tell you, way back when we used to drink a ton of Meisterbrau.
Yeah, that was the very first light beer. Remember that Meisterbrau Light? It was before our time, but
I didn't drink Meisterbrau Light, but I drank Meisterbrau. Yeah.
Meisterbrau Light came out, and I believe it was '68. And it was spelled L-I-G-H-T, like a light bulb. But so, and then when Miller Lite came out, they reformulated that what it is now. So, because I study those adjunct lauders, Tom.
Meisterbrau. So we used to buy. There are two. We used to buy Meisterbrau and Carling's Black Label because we could get a case of Meisterbrau for what a 12-pack of Bud costs.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about Black Label.
Yeah, we drink a ton of Carling's Black Label. And if you want to talk about getting the shits,
I'm going to walk this way. I'm going to show you something, Tom.
See, I don't even know what that is. They're before me.
Thomas? That's an old Black Label sign.
Move it over a little more, John.
Which way?
It'll be to your left. There you go. Maybe down just a touch. There you go.
You see it?
Oh, yeah, now I can see it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Oh, Black Label, there you go. Yeah. You got fuzzy on here, but there we go.
But, yeah, I mean, hang on a second. I'm going to show you one thing before we go, Tom.
All right.
Just one more.
Those of you watching don't care, do you? John's going to bring one more thing back.
Here's an old Mark V.
One guy watching.
from 70, from 71. But look, there's those cans he's talking about, Tom.
Yep.
Oh, yep. That's it. Yep.
That's a full can, never been opened.
Boy,
Still
you
have
can
the liquid
really
in it?
taste. You could taste the tin in those cans too, boy.
Good.
It's like eating the lead out of tank.
Those were good. That was good beer drinking back then, boy. Boy, you could taste that tin.
But you remember those pull tabs?
Oh, yep.
You'd pull those pull tabs off. You'd stick that pull tab in that thing and flip it back and fly it. Remember that? Did you ever do that?
Well, what my sisters did is they used to take those pull tabs and they had a chain that went all around their rooms.
Yeah. But I mean, you can sit here and talk forever about these old beers like this. I mean, and the stuff you did. But yeah, I mean, the tin taste in them was just. Then they went to frickin' aluminum, killed everything.
Yeah, now you could taste the beer.
Yeah, yeah.
Those bastards, those sons of bitches. Now I can taste the beer. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the beer doesn't taste bad now. It's just that maybe the tin was making it taste better.
Very well could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it is the actual.
Before you just brought it up, John.
Maybe it is the actual formula. It's just in a better can or bottle.
Yeah.
So now you can taste the beer, not the old tin or the lead.
Hey, but you know, before we get off here, and I'll bring this comment up. I mean, I've watched about all your videos that you've done on your pub review. As a matter of fact, I've watched all of them. But I can always remember the thing that Red brung up at one time was how much beer's changed, because as craft beer drinkers back in the early days, I mean, you got to think about Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
And some of these other beers now that are kind of starting to lose their market value because of the changing times that the old school people like me and you and I don't know how old he is, probably the same age we are grew up with, and now, you know, there's such a changing time of more beers that are getting bigger than what these are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the craft beer industry is every day it's a changing revolution in the beer industry. So
craft beer is the new wine.
Yeah.
So again, as long as we've been on this long, so I'm going to let it go around one more time. Todd, any last words?
Nothing more than what I said previously.
John, any last words? Anything else you want to show?
No, but apparently Heady Topper's getting ready to be released nationally now, so that's probably.
Are they really? Is somebody else going to brew them, or what are they doing?
No, you got, you know, no, I tagged Todd saying that today, that they're getting their beer rep is, they're not disclosing who's representing the beer, but they are going to be now distributed nationally throughout the United States.
I've only had one can, and that was, good Lord, 4 years ago.
Yeah. That's the only beer they make, right?
No, they have a couple others.
Do they? Okay. I thought that was maybe the only one they drank.
Just not as popular for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Which I think Heady Topper's a good beer. I think it's a little overrated for what it is, but I think it's a good beer. So.
Well, it's the you know, the mystique of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to get.
But John, aren't they all overrated? I mean, the ones that everybody has to have, Pliny, Heady Topper, aren't. I mean, they're great beers, but on some level, isn't every beer like that overrated? Prairie Bomb, I mean, isn't all those overrated on some level? I mean, they're all great beers, so you can say, well, it's not overrated because it's a great beer, but is it really that great? Is it better than some others that are very similar?
Well, it's like you and I've talked before, Tom. You know, a couple of times, and here recently, even it's are they that much better than some of the local breweries that you can get, you know, 10 miles from your house, that it doesn't get the recognition and nobody even knows who they are because they don't distribute. And not that Heady Topper distributes, but it's for whatever reason, because of Rate Beer or Beer Advocate, it's got the name for it, and people just die for it because it's rated #1. You know, I gotta have it, but is it really any better?
For whatever reason, some beers become beer darlings. Some beers For whatever reason, some people buy the hype. I don't know that one. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these beer. I think Heady Topper is when I had it, it was every bit as good as I heard it was going to be. So on that level, it did live up to the hype. Pliny was the same way. It was every good as I expected it to be. But is it better than other double or imperial IPAs that I've had? I've had some that I enjoyed just as much.
For a third of the price.
Yeah, yeah. In some cases, yeah.
But I mean, I've had the Pliny the Elder, and I've had the Blind Pig, and I've had the Heady Topper, and I've had the Zombie Dust, and and I agree a lot with Todd that there's some beers right here, right now, locally, that's just as good, if not better than those that's not getting the hype that they deserve.
Well, I think in some cases, I've known a few craft breweries that really just want to be neighborhood breweries. They're not looking to get this distributed nationwide.
Yeah.
They just want to keep their audience right there. So, there's a lot of great beers out there that a lot of people don't know of. So, yeah, if that's your point, you're exactly right.
It's kind of like for us, you got the Flat 12 now. It's got the little brew pub in Jeff, but they're out of Indianapolis, but they make. I mean, I don't really think they make anything that you just be like, oh, it's just not good. I mean, everything they do is solid.
Well, that half cycle is kicking, baby. That half cycle is kicking.
Especially when it comes to their barrel aging stuff. I know that's getting kind of out of the box a little bit, but I mean, they just do. To your point, it's just a solid beer, but nothing gets nationally recognized for them. And I think it's just all it has to do maybe in marketing or maybe who or maybe who you're paying to get your name out there. I don't know what the backbone is for a lot of these beers, but
and I know when you was down here, Tom. I mean, you had New Albanian and you might have went across the river and got Against the Grain and some Cumberland and stuff like that. But and it's been a few years since you've been down here. But now, I mean, the Louisville and Southern Indiana market right now is just freaking booming. I mean, it's growing.
Yeah.
Well, my
neck of the woods, I mean, right here in the Ozarks, or right where I live in Missouri, has been booming. And the Ozark side of Arkansas, I mean, craft breweries are popping up in places you wouldn't expect them to be. So I don't mean to cut you guys off, but I'm going to shut this down, mostly because I have to pee. This is Tom the Beer Whisperer. This has been Classic Brands Edition with my two favorite Hoosier friends, John and Todd, and hell, we may be back later if they still want to drink.
See you guys later.
Have a good one.
All right, we're off the air. Hey, don't leave, John. I know you got to work tomorrow, but hey.